لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. Congratulations on the coming of Shahrullah, the month of Ramadan. And may Allah accept your fasting. One of the time periods for us to reacquaint ourselves with the Holy Quran is Shahr Ramadan. And reciting one verse in this month is equal to reciting the entire Quran. Now, not only is reciting the Quran important for us, but also thinking and reflecting how Quran itself mentions, why don't you think, why don't you ponder about the Quran? And from the chapters of the Quran that I thought is good to talk about, the chapter that I have chosen is Surah al-Anbiya, the chapter of the prophets. There's many numbers of prophets, maybe 15, 16, 17 prophets in this surah. Some of them are just mentioned by name. But these prophets, this surah is for us to learn these names, learn from their stories. Because when God gives us stories in the Quran, it's to wake us up. When our mothers gives us stories, it is for us to fall asleep. But the stories in the prophets are to wake us up. When we look at the fadilat of the surah, chapter of the prophets, Surah al-Anbiya, the hadith has from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, Man qara'a Surah al-Anbiya hubban laha kana kaman rafaqa an-nabiyyina ajma'ina fi jannat an-na'im. Whoever recites this chapter, Surah al-Anbiya, hubban laha, with love. You love the prophets, for example. You love all of them. You want to love them and show your love. Kana kaman rafaqa nabiyin, as if he has become the prophets' friends. The different prophets mentioned. We'll mention some of the stories of some of the prophets tonight. Prophet Idris, for example, Enoch. And we'll talk about his story. Man qara'a Surah al-Anbiya hasabahu Allah hisaban yasira. Allah will take his account and make his account easy if you recite this surah. وَصَافَحَهُ وَسَلَّمَ عَلَيْهِ كُلُّ نَبِيٍّ. And every prophet will say salam to him that's mentioned in the Quran. So if you want to learn about the prophets, and this is one of the chapters that talks about how people in general, they left the belief of prophethood and why they rejected prophethood, it is important for us to recite this surah. Let's start with it because we don't have much time and I don't want to take too much of your time. Inshallah, these nights, weeknights, we'll make it short so that inshallah you can continue your eating and drinking until Fajr, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the first verse. If you have a Quran, you can look at it too. You can research it and look at the verse. Verse number 1, Surah al-Anbiya, the surah of the prophets. It starts with this, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, اقترب للناس حسابهم. The time of their account has approached. وهم في غفلة معرضون. While they are in heedlessness, turning away. So the first verse starts with talking about اقترب. اقترب means, اقتراب comes from قرب in Farsi. قرب we have in Farsi language means closeness. Or in other languages, I'm sure in Urdu we have it. اقترب or قرب. للناس, to mankind, or has approached for mankind, their hisab. While we are living life right now, mankind, From the day of start of creation, the account or the day of judgment is becoming closer and closer, is becoming closer and closer. From the day we were born until now, either ourselves, when it comes to, for example, our lives are ending. Either if, no matter what, yesterday you had more life than today. It's withering away. Or in general, when mankind has been created, that the hisab, the account, is approaching. It's interesting that hisab is approaching. Not that people are going to the day of judgment. The day of judgment in the Quran is approaching the people. The hisab, the accountability. And this reminds us that not only do we believe in the day of heaven and hell, but we believe in accountability. Hisab is coming. Hisab. Now some people say, I believe in an afterlife. But what use is that if you don't believe that you will be judged for your actions? You have to believe in an afterlife, that you will be judged for every atom's weight of good or bad, for that to be influential or effective in your life. Not just believing in afterlife. I believe in reincarnation. I believe in, for example, everyone goes to heaven. No matter what. If I have the right religion, nobody will ask me anything. How does that make you act? You're free. So okay, I believe I have a religion. I can do whatever I want. But in the religion of Islam, we have belief and we have accountability of actions. Just because you're Muslim doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want. Actually, in some situations, the more knowledge you have, the more you will be asked. So the hisab is coming, and we all have to realize this. Death is approaching us. The account is happening. And one of the best ways in Shahr Ramadan in general to change ourselves is to think about death, to think about the account. What would I do right now if God took my life away? Does anybody here right now, do you know if you're going to heaven or hell? Do you have a card or something that you guys says you're going to heaven for sure? If you do, please give it to me or share it with me. Nobody knows. It's a mystery. And this is the beautiful thing, that Allah doesn't allow us to know if we're going to heaven or if we're going to hell. We don't know. But we know the hisab is coming. We know the account is coming, but nobody knows where they'll go. What do you think would happen if I knew I was going to heaven? Right now, for example, one of the elders in this masjid worships a lot and said to everyone here, for example, says, I know who's going to heaven, who's going to hell. And they tell you, you're going to heaven. You would be immediately happy. And maybe you would stop trying as hard. You say, well, I'm going to heaven. Maybe that Salatul Fajr that was so hard for you to wake up, morning prayer, you say, forget it, I'm going to heaven anyway. They already told me I'm going. So we do not know. We know the account is coming, but we do not know if we go to heaven or we go to the hellfire. Imam Ali alayhi salam had fear of the hellfire. Is anyone here higher than Ali ibn Abi Talib? They say when he would dig a well, he would go underneath, the story has, and he would come up, and it's hard to dig a well. How deep do you have to go down, especially in deserts, to reach water or underground river? And then when he would come up, his face would be dirty or muddy. His clothes would be dirty and muddy himself. And before even cleaning himself, they say, bring paper and pen for me. I want to write that Ali ibn Abi Talib is making waqf, is giving this well as an endowment, as a gift. Basically, anyone who wants to use it can use this water so that Ali can be free from the hellfire. So Ali will not go to the hellfire. That is the reality, because even the awliya of God, they had fear of the hellfire, but we don't. So it says, اِقْتَرَبَ لِلنَّاسِ حِسَابُهُمْ. Our account, every one of you, eventually one day, it will come and we will have to face our Lord and we will have to answer. But then the Quran says, وَهُمْ فِي غَفْلَةٍ مُعْرِضُونَ. But they are in ghafla, they are in heedless. They're not paying attention. Ghafla has two meanings, to be heedless. One is, you never knew. Nobody taught you. You never knew from the beginning. I never knew that this was right. I didn't have any idea. that there's heaven and hell. Or that you know but you forget and it doesn't affect you. You know but you forget it. So the first type of ghafla is a ghafla I never knew from the beginning. The second is that I knew but I forget. Why do you forget? Because you're occupied with other things. Why do you forget something? Your mind is occupied. I'm occupied with the world. I'm attached to the world. What am I going to do today? What am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do for work? What am I going to do for money? What am I going? I have this schedule of work, dunya, 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 and I forget, oh no, this death can come anytime. Anytime, right while I'm speaking, I can die right now. How do I know? Do I know that I'll live tomorrow? No. So this is an interesting thing that Allah says in this Quran, and I'll say the English again, the time of their account has approached for the people, while they are in heedlessness turning away. And this is the month of Ramadan. These are impactful verses for us to learn that, look, it's time to pay attention. As we have in the hadith, an-nasu niyam, people are asleep. When they die, إِذَا مَاتُوا إِنْتَبَهُوا. When they die, they wake up. Oh no, it was all real. They told me, all these prophets told me, all these successors told me, they said you're going to have life on this earth and you're going to be able to build for yourself a hereafter or you'll build for yourself a hellfire. And they were right. And then you see everything, the curtains are removed, then you say, oh no, it's too late. Whatever they said in Masjed Al-Nabi was all right. Whatever hadith they said was all right. Whatever verses they said was all right. Let me go back to the world, please. Let me allow me to go back. I promise this time I will be good. But there's no returning because it's final. We only have one chance to live. So this is a very impactful verse. اقترب للناس حسابهم وهم في غفلة معرضون. So we, inshallah, will not be in that ghafla in this month of Ramadan. You will think about the hereafter. You think about the hisab. You think about my actions. And you try to gain as much as you can in this month. Because this is the month to do it. This is one of the best times that even your anfas, your breath, is barakat in this month, is tasbih and glorification of God in this month. Even your sleep is worship. So recite Quran if you can. Do more ibadat. Help people out. Be kind. Have good akhlaq. One of the things it says, have good akhlaq. Why? Because also some people when they fast and they don't have food, they become a little bit angry, some agitated. I saw this, for example. I don't know if you ever lived in a Muslim country. Sometimes I was riding the bus and it was during iftar time, and in the bus everyone wanted to fight each other and kill each other in the bus. Because right close to iftar, and you'd have to stand up. Some people didn't have seats either. You have to stand up like this. And fasting, and you're agitated because that's what happens when you fast. So akhlaq is part of it. Work. You're supposed to be hungry, thirsty, and also be kind and patient. Very hard. But if you can do this in Shahr Ramadan, it means you can be kind and patient after Shahr Ramadan. Because now you have food, now you have drink. Let's go to the next verse. ما يأتيهم من ذكر من ربهم محدث إلا استمعوه وهم يلعبون. No mention comes to them anew from their Lord. يأتيهم. So this verse, ظاهرا, is talking about the Quran now. It says this dhikr, this remembrance comes to the Arabs in Arabia 1400 years ago. محدث, that is new, that is created. Some say this is one of the verses that Allama Tabatabai says. It means that ظاهرا, the Quran is created. That I don't want to get into theological debate. Is the Quran uncreated or is it created? It says this ظاهرا, the Quran is created. The knowledge of the Quran is forever, the knowledge, but the words are created. مُحْدَثٍ إِلَّا اسْتَمِعُوهُ وَهُمْ يَلْعَبُونَ. No mention comes to them anew. A new remembrance comes to them from their Lord, except they listen to it. But the problem is, they are yal'abun, they are playing. Quran comes, dhikr comes. So one says, the first verse says they're in ghafla, mu'ridun, they're turning away, they're heedless. Now this says yal'abun, they're playing. They're busy playing, how Quran mentions, because playing lab is a coherent act that has no purpose beyond the imaginary, like the games that children play. So it's a coherent act that has no purpose behind the imaginary. They're just playing and playing they're in their imagination in another world. But yet this Quran, this remembrance comes to them. Then the third verse, لاهية قلوبهم. Their hearts have lahu. Lahiya is from lahu. Their hearts are distracted. When someone has lahu, it's distracted from an important matter. So they're in ghafla, they're mu'radun, they're turning away. They're la'ibun, they're playing. And now they have lahu or lahiya, meaning that they are distracted. وَأَسَرُّ النَّجْوَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا هَلْ هَذَا إِلَّا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. And then they come together and they talk, they speak to one another and they converse in private and they say, is this prophet except a human being like you? So would you approach magic while you are aware of it? They try to bring down the station of Rasulullah and say that he illa basharun mithlukum. Why are you listening to him? He is a human like you. They're coming together and secretly at that time say, he's just a human. If he was from God, he would fly, for example. He would zoom this way. He's eating. He's drinking like us. How is he a prophet? How does he have a message? He looks like me. He has, just like you, he's the same genus as you. He's a human being. And then they say, okay, now, but he does have the Quran, which is something special. But they say, well, أَفَتَأْتُونَ السِّحْرَ وَأَنْتُمْ تُبْصِرُونَ. So would you approach magic while you're aware? So what he is doing is, two ways they're trying to bring down the position of the Prophet in this verse. One, he's like you. He doesn't have any special abilities. Because if he was from God, he would have been like an angel. He would have been light, nur, something different. But he's like us. Why would we believe in him? Two, he has a Quran, but this is magic. This is not normal. The fact that people are listening to it and are affected by it, they're enchanted. So you see how evil their sayings are, because this is in general the story of human beings in general. When they wanted to reject a prophet, they would give these explanations for different reasons, and they say either he's like a human being, he doesn't have any special abilities, we expected someone else. For example, you should have complete superpowers all over the world and destroy everyone with a snap of the finger. How come he's not like that? Or this verse is coming, it's sihr, that's it. It's witchcraft. So tonight's discussion is about this rejection of the prophets. And Surah al-Anbiya, and if you read the Quran, you see, majority of the people rejected the prophets. Majority of the people rejected the prophets. And why did they reject it? Quran mentions in other places that the reactions of people usually from Quran we see, the powerful rejected. The powerful people rejected the prophets. Two, from Quran, wealthy people rejected the prophets. I have the verses. If we have time, we'll go over them. Those that supported the prophets were who? The oppressed and deprived, from Quran. The oppressed and deprived. Reasons for opposition. One, it is because of arrogance. They were arrogant. They did not want someone else telling them what to do. Some people, unfortunately, in society, they have a good status. They have money. They have wealth. They're at a higher economic status. Or they're more, for example, educated. They have a degree from a certain university. Unfortunately, it causes them to have arrogance. And they think that they're better than others. So then a prophet comes to them, or a hadith, you mention a hadith to them, or a verse of Quran, and say, I cannot accept this. Because my degree, for example, this university will not allow me to accept this. So they reject. It's not because of knowledge. Not because it doesn't make sense. It's because they're arrogant now. They cannot be humble. They don't want someone telling them what to do. Two, tribal chauvinism. So let's go through some of these verses. The opposition was the vast majority. And you see throughout the Quran that in general people that were the powerful elite, وَقَالُوا رَبَّنَا إِنَّا أَتَعْنَا صَادَتَنَا وَكُبَرَاءَنَا فَأَضَلُّنَا سَبِيلًا. Quran mentions, they will say, our Lord, we obeyed our leaders, our elders, and they led us astray. The leaders and our elders, so the powerful people. And Quran mentions the leaders and elders, they're the ones. Why does it make sense for leaders to reject a prophet? Because they're in fight for power. They're trying to misuse religion, or they're trying to deceive people like Pharaoh to make people slaves of them. And if a prophet comes to set these deprived people free and to give them ability to think for themselves and to ask for their freedom, then they're going to fight against these prophets because they're changing the dynamics of how they're ruling, for example. So usually the institutions, the powerful institutions, for example, the governments at that time, those that are in power, they do not want disruption. They don't want anyone to disrupt their rule. So that prophet, that, for example, Rasulullah, when he was young, they loved him. He was Sadiqun Amin. When they didn't know how to put, for example, Hajar al-Aswad back in its place, Rasulullah would come and say, you take one hand, you take one sheet, you take one sheet, and I'll put the holy rock back in the Kaaba, for example. When it came to trust, they would put their own money with Rasulullah. They did not have a problem with Rasulullah, with our Prophet, when he was young, for example. But when he came with a message, and he instructed people, now live your lives like this. Do not listen to Quraysh. Do not listen to the chiefs of Quraysh. This Hajj, for example, this is different. This is polytheism. Now this is going to go against their economy. It's going to go against their power. It's going to go against, for example, all these oppressed people that they're used to oppressing and having them work for them. So now that you are young, for example, Muhammad, you're young. Now that you're old, you're 40, for example, and now you have a way of life which is different than our way of life. Now we have to fight you. But when you're young, we would trust you. We would give you our money. So you see, when they fight against the rule of the people, the wealthy people, that is when they would fight or contest them. That is when they would fight against the prophets. We see in other verses of Quran, the wealthy, sometimes Quran mentions those that oppose the prophets were wealthy individuals. And we see, for example, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا فِي قَرْيَةٍ مِّن نَذِيرٍ إِلَّا قَالُوا مُتْرَفُوهَا. We did not send a warner to any town without its affluent ones saying, إِنَّا بِمَا أُرْسِلْتُمْ بِهِ كَافِرُونَ. We indeed disbelieve in what you have sent with it, the wealthy. Does this mean that wealth itself is bad? No. It means those greedy individuals that didn't want to lose money. They didn't want their dominion over the world, their domination over the world to be affected. And you see, this is what is happening today. That the institutions, the powerful institutions, the banks, those that are holding, for example, the world economy together, they do not want any disruption. Even a little bit of trade, if it's hampered somewhere or there, they cannot tolerate it. They always want to be in power. Sometimes even Quran says, to the first, we said the elders, the powerful elite. Two, the wealthy would fight against the prophets. And the third are the knowledgeable. They had knowledge, but their knowledge was not good. It wasn't real knowledge. It mentions in Quran that فَرِحُوا بِمَا عِنْدَهُمْ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ. And they boasted about the knowledge they possessed. So when the prophets came, they boasted about the knowledge they came. They didn't want to accept. It's like the example of Prophet Nuh's son. Prophet Nuh's son had knowledge. He had knowledge, and it is actually nice knowledge if you think about it, because his father is a prophet and says there's going to be a huge flood. And he was smart, his son. He had knowledge. He says, well, why don't we go to the highest mountain? Or go to the tip of the hill, tip of the mountain. So he knew that water flows down. Usually mountains do not go underwater. It snows on mountains, but mountains do not go underwater. That's knowledge, right? That's a good type of knowledge. But actually this knowledge caused them to drown. Because it's the wrong type of knowledge. Because you have this type of knowledge, but your father has been a prophet for like 900 years, 950 years, Prophet Noah, and he's saying, look, everything's going to go under the water. I'm building a boat for this reason. There's no sea close to here, for example. I'm building a boat. For this reason, they told me, I'm informed that there's going to be a flood. Even the mountains will go. But his son insisted. So knowledge is a double-sided sword. If you use knowledge humbly and you request, that knowledge from God, and God grants it to you, that's very good. But as they say, our scholars say, al-ilm hijabul akbar. Knowledge can also be the worst type of hijab. Why? Because now I know something. Now I'm ayatollah, for example. And they say in the Hawza, they say when you study and you become an ayatollah, also your nafs and your lower desires becomes an ayatollah as well. He also gets educated. That's the problem. You become a great scholar and also your lower desires becomes a great scholar and wants to trick you, knows how to trick. No, this is halal. Let me fix it. I'm going to fix it for you, for example. I'm going to do this. You can do that. So you become a tricky person. So these are the three signs that we have from some of the verses or on that. Why did people fight against the prophets? They're the powerful elite, the wealthy, the knowledgeable. Who are the divisions? And we have, for example, the oppressed, those that would help the prophets. Because they say, for example, they would say, look, to the prophets, they would say, we do not see you to be anything but a human being like ourselves, and we do not see anyone following you except those who are simple-minded, riff-raff from our midst. These people, they're nobodies, these deprived people, they're your followers. They're your followers. They didn't want to follow a prophet whose followers were not very affluent or rich people. So arrogance, they had kibr, they had tahwa anfusahum because they're running out of time. They had selfish desires. They said, why would we go against Abba and our tribalry? Why would we go against our fathers? Tribalism. But therefore you see that we are in need of prophets though. And the prophets came to tell us to worship God. Prophet Idris was maybe from the 5th generation of Prophet Adam. Prophet Idris. And the descendants of Qabil, they say. And if you look at the stories of the prophets after Adam, usually Idris is the next one, or Enoch. In English, they call him Enoch. In the story, it has that he wanted to wonder, about the creation and observe the creation and wanted to worship God. So therefore, he told his people that worship God, your creator. All of this that you see in front of you has a Rabb. The moon has a Lord. The sun has a Lord. All of this. Why don't you worship God? So 7 people became 10 people, 100 people, until they became 1,000 people for Prophet Idris. And from there, they took and they went backwards and said, now we have 1,000 people. Let's take the best of the best. So to separate from 1,000, 100. 10 or whatever, until they're left with around 7 people. 7 sincere people. Then they asked Allah, teach me worship. And then Allah began to teach Prophet Idris and his followers how to worship God. And for years at that time, they worshiped God sincerely as a true monotheist and muwahhid. There was a time period in this world where everyone worshiped God as a monotheist. So therefore, when you look at the story in this hadith, you see that Prophet Idris wants to learn how to worship God. Many of us today in our society, they say, I know God, but how can I serve Him? What can I do? How can I worship Him? I need a plan. I need someone to coach me, to teach me. That is the reason for the prophets. The prophets came, one of their duties is to teach you how to worship God. For example, the salat that we have is from prophets. Our prophet and other prophets before him did salat, for example. This siyam and fasting that we have, kutiba, is written for those that were before you, prescribed for those that were before you. So therefore, we need prophets. One of the needs that we have is that prophets can come and they can give us instructions, detailed instructions, how to worship God. Because man cannot come together and put their mind together and make up worship. If they try today, you see these fake religions, false religions like Scientology or false acts of worship that don't make any sense that some of these man-made religions have, like cults, and it's all actually not effective at all. We need pure from God himself, from his ambassadors, which are divine gods, need to come, and they teach us this is how you worship God, this is how he needs you to worship him. So Prophet Enoch or Prophet Idris is actually two different interpretations of how he died, or if he's alive still. So they say that he asked an angel to show him, he had a request from this angel, he helped an angel out, and the angel wanted to return a favor. So the angel asked Prophet Idris, what do you want? He says, I want to know who the angel of death is. I want to know who the angel of death is. So they started searching for Israel, the angel of death. Usually we run away from the angel of death. Prophet Idris was curious and wanted to meet him, wanted to meet the angel of death. This is a story for you, so not to search for the angel of death. So he went to meet him. They looked in this world all over, they didn't find him. So they went to the skies, it says. Skies, first sky, second, third, fourth and fifth sky, they meet the angel of death. And the angel of death is surprised too. It's like, you're here? And they're like, basically, you're here? They both meet each other in the fourth and fifth sky. It says, I was wondering, they told me I'm supposed to take your soul, the angel of death says, between the fourth and fifth sky. And I was wondering, how am I going to do that? How is he going to be in the fourth or fifth sky? And actually, Prophet Idris was there in the fourth or fifth sky looking for him. So right there, the story has, he takes his life away. Other versions of this story said they worshiped God so much until God took him himself and he's alive in the fourth or fifth sky. This is another interpretation about Prophet Idris' life. But there's two. One of the interpretations is that he died. So even Prophet Idris, when you think of it, that they worshipped God and he learned that worship from God, and that even prophets, that they cannot escape death. So the hisab, the account is coming close to us. We don't know when it will come, but what we have to be is not ghafilun or in ghafla or mu'ridun, or turning our backs towards this reality that we like to turn our backs to. Inshallah, we will not do this. And this month of Ramadan is a month for us to think about death and think about God and his worship, inshallah. May Allah help us worship Allah in this Shahr Ramadan, this beautiful month. May Allah help us with our fasting and our recitation of Holy Quran and acts of ibadah. May Allah make us closer to the Imam of the age in Shahr Ramadan. May Allah expedite his return and forgive our sins and have rahmah and mercy on our deceased, our family members. With a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.